Who's your emergency contact? Who should we notify in the case of death? Welcome to the USP, where I've spent the last 2+ decades of my life. You know, I'm taking you through the course of my journey as I go through different penitentiaries. And I don't know how it is in the FCI levels. Like, I've met people at FCIs and they tell me that the COs down there in those mediums and camps are very disrespectful. They're arrogant. You know, they talk shit to you and whatever else they do. But the reason why those COs down there in those mediums level and camps and lows and stuff feel they can be disrespectful and talk to you like that because, one, they know that the yard is full of busters. They know the yard is full of rats. They know the yard is full of sex offenders. But each prison that you're in is on a compound, a complex. So you're going to have the penitentiary, the USP. Then you're going to have a FCI. Then you're going to have a camp. You know, some facilities, some complex have 4 facilities there. Some others have 5. If you go to Victorville, Victorville has a USP, has a FCI 1, FCI 2, a camp for the women, and a camp for the men. It's a huge ass complex. But all these COs, they interchange. This quarter they might work at a camp. The next quarter they might work at an FCI. And the next quarter they might work in a USP. And sometime through the course of, working through these different facilities, they might get confused that, hey, maybe you're no longer working at a camp or a low this time, but you're actually in a USP. But when you develop a habit of being disrespectful, it's hard to turn it off. And sometimes you forget where you are until someone reminds you. In this particular incident, it happened in B block. It had a DC dude. He was walking through the metal detector. And his lady, another lady staff, didn't know or didn't understand the environment that she was in. Or maybe not understand, but didn't respect the environment that she was in. So when the DC dude went through the metal detector, he set off the alarm. And the DC dude tells him, hey, come back and clear this shit. And the dude's like, man, fuck that. I already cleared it. This shit ain't whatever. I don't know the exact conversation that, transpired between the two of them. But she's like, man, get the fuck back through that metal detector. Her tone was disrespectful. And dude's like, hey, man, who the fuck you think you're talking to? You don't talk to me like that. I'm just paraphrasing. And she continued. I told you to get the fuck back, go back through the military. Whatever it was, the exact word that she said, her tone was just like, I'm the boss. You do what I tell you. Fuck you. Type of attitude. So the DC dude went back. And he put 3 locks on a belt or a sock. You get those master locks. They're about this big and they hurt. Like, I've never been hit in the head with one, but I've seen people get clunked with that shit, and you get hit hard enough and enough time, you're not going to be right anymore in the head. So the people in the block, because I live in CA, the deuces go off, people run over there, and we don't know what happened. They're just yelling, lockdown, lockdown, lockdown. So we get locked down. In Beaumont, we get locked down a lot because a lot of stuff was going on. And you get, it's so many locks down, you don't know which lockdown is for which because it's just whatever. You get the idea. I'm in bloody Beaumont. And shit happens all the time over there. So He waits for the movement to close, and the lady CO comes in. Again, this is a lady CO, but it doesn't matter if it's a female, if it's a male. Doesn't matter if you're little. Doesn't matter if you're big. Doesn't matter if you're the warden, the lieutenant. When you disrespect someone and that person feels some type of way, especially if that dude's got a life sentence or 1,000 years, you're putting yourself at risk for absolutely no reason. But the reason that they're able to be comfortable enough to be disrespectful to inmates, to convicts, is because they don't see us as equal to them. They don't see inmates as deserving of courtesy and respect. We're just a bunch of low-life criminals. And every single time, those COs that have that perception, that has that mentality, it ends up not turning out too well for them. So when the lady comes in, he put the lock on her, started bashing her in the head with the lock, knocked her out, and beat her up some more. But in the course of the confrontation, she falls down and her radio slides out. But when her radio slides out, they had this Florida dude come, picks up the radio, and gets on the radio and say, "Officer down, officer down." Like, he hit the deuces for the CO. Now, we might have different opinions on if he did the right thing, by trying to help this female CO from getting too fucked up or whatever. So when they come in, they secure the situation, they lock the DC dude up, and they take the Florida dude that got on the radio to call for backup for this seat guard that was knocked out. They took him to the SHU too. Now, I emphasize a lot, or maybe not enough. These staffs, these cops out here, these FBI agents, these courts, they don't give a fuck about you. Once they're done using you to help them get what they want, they're going to throw you to the wolves. Because if the SIS, Special Investigation Service, that oversees all of these incidents in the penitentiary, if the lieutenant and the administration, if any of these individuals had any type of sense, they know this dude can't never come back out on a compound. Not to no USP. Because when he was in the SHU, the DCs, a couple of DCs approached the Florida car because they were mad about that dude hitting the fucking deuces, getting on the radio to help a fucking cop. And they told the Florida dudes, "Hey, when this dude come back out, we're going to hit him." Of course, SIS goes and do their investigation to see if this dude's safe to come back out. And back then, people on the compound, we don't talk to the police. We don't tell anybody that they can't come out. So, of course, when the SIS asked these people if it's safe for this Florida dude to come back out on the compound, everybody said, "Yeah, there's no issue. We don't have no problem with him." But again, your job is, as an investigator, should know the mentality of the population that you're overseeing. And if you're sitting there working in bloody Beaumont, you know this dude that's get butchered for less shit than this. So you know it wasn't safe for this guy to come back out. Well, anyway, they let the guy back out. When they let him back out, and that guy walked into the unit, 2 DCs went up on him and stabbed him. Like, I don't know how many times they hit him, but they were on his ass and it tore him up. And The number I heard was at least 15 times. Now, I don't know if any of you has ever been stabbed once. Once is enough. Once hurts. So to get 15 holes poked into you, and these aren't little ice picks, little toothpicks. In Beaumont, everything on the wall, everything that's metal, everything that can be taken down, cut up, sand down, filed, is being taken off the walls, cut up, sand down for knives. And nobody wants a little one because they know everybody else got machete. So everybody's running around with freaking machetes in Beaumont. And this Florida dude got chopped up by the DCs. And the Florida car didn't do anything about it because in their hearts of heart, they knew their homeboy was in the wrong. And if they were to try to protect him, then the whole DC car would have got on all the Florida dudes. Because when you don't allow things to be corrected, then that punishment falls upon you too. And I've had a few comments earlier when I told people about Beaumont that the DCs ran the yard in Beaumont. Whether you like it or not, whether you agree with it or not, that's what happened. There was a lot of dudes out of Texas that was out in Beaumont, but they didn't come out of the unit. They weren't hanging out on the yard. And the DCs ran the yard, homie. When it comes to certain issues like that, if they feel they need to insert themselves, they insert themselves. And when they insert themselves, 9 times out of 10 times, whoever they're insisting and pushing up on, bow down or wreck. But you have to understand that sometimes you might feel like, yeah, you're doing the right thing or whatever. But we have different understanding of what the right thing is. And as far as us being in the penitentiary, we don't have any love for these COs. These are our overseers. These are the people that have the keys keeping us in the penitentiary. And no matter, there's a lot of them that are cool and that is deserving of my courtesy and even a certain level of respect. But at the end of the day, they're going to end up taking your shit. At the end of the day, they're going to show up to court and testify against you. And depending on what day you catch them, they'll flash that attitude, that mentality that you are inferior to them. So when things like this happen, I really don't have any empathy or sympathy for them because most of the time they bring it upon themselves because they're in a state of mind that they feel like they can be disrespectful and talk to someone in their own way, in any way they want. And, if there's any correctional officers that are viewing this stuff, that work in penitentiaries, county jails, or whatever, listen, man. People don't care about that badge. People don't care about that uniform. If you're disrespectful and you get the right guy, they're going to give it to you. And then what are you going to do? You're going to sit there at trial, at a hearing, talking about, oh, I was just doing my job. I feel the way I feel about this because I went through it personally. The CO that I knocked out thought he was tough. He looked at me like I was inferior to him. Like I was just some little punk. But when I knocked his bitch ass out, what did he do at court? Cried, talking about, all I was doing was doing my job, and I'm never going to feel safe as long as this guy's on the street. But he failed to tell the courts that he was a little bitch trying to push his weight around, trying to be tough and being disrespectful. You know, regardless how you feel about me and about the people like me, we have standards. We have certain behaviors that we don't accept. We don't violate kids. We don't violate women. We don't tell on people. Welcome to the USP.